All right, so we are on um First Samuel lesson 6. Yes, lesson 6A. And like I was saying, I don't think I divided this up um as well as I should have. So we're really hitting chapter 21 today, and we have about 3 psalms, and so I went ahead and put them up here. So where we left off, it was really just kind of oof, heavy. So in chapter 20, we have David and Jonathan are in covenant, and Jonathan had talked to his father. He gave him the benefit of the doubt. He had talked to him and said, "Hey, why are you, seeking David's life? He hasn't done anything to you." And Saul, agreed with him in that moment, but then we see that he obviously disagreed later. So he's chunking spears at David again. He's seeking his life. Jonathan's grieved over David and because his father dishonored him. And then we see David and Jonathan parting. Jonathan, they have like this kind of secret code or whatever of how they're Jonathan's going to let David know that yes, my father is in fact seeking your life. And so went through that. And that last chapter theme, go in safety, the Lord will be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever. And so we talked about that, and how that played out with Jonathan's son and David bringing Jonathan's son into his household whenever he was king. So and really we left off with just heavy sadness. 41, when the lad was gone, David rose from the south side and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times, and they kissed each other and wept together. But David wept the more. And Jonathan said to David, go in safety, inasmuch as we have sworn to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord would be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever. And then he rose and departed, while Jonathan went into the city. And so we talked about how um, Jonathan and David would never see each other again. Um, here's the start of it. Here's the, David's running. David has to run now. And so this is where it's kind of like I see another segment division popping up, where we have um David serving the king, and now David running from the king. And so we could even have a small one, David anointed king, David serving the king, David running from the king. So just heading into chapter 21, now David's on the run. Um, so then David came to Nob, to Abimelech, or I'm sorry, Ahimelech the priest. And Ahimelech came trembling to meet David and said to him, why are you alone and no one with you? And David said to Ahimelech the priest, the king has commissioned me with a matter and has said to me, no one know anything about the matter on which I am sending you and with which I have commissioned you, and I have directed the young men to a certain place. Now, therefore, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread, or whatever can be found. And the priest answered David and said, there is no ordinary bread on hand, but there is consecrated bread, if only the young men would have kept themselves from women. And David answered the priest and said to him, surely women have been kept from us, as previously as when I set out, and the vessels of the young men were holy. Though it was an ordinary journey, how much more than today will their vessels be holy? So the priest gave him consecrated bread, for there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which was removed from before the Lord in order to put the hot bread in its place when it was taken away. Now, one of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg the Edomite, the chief of Saul's shepherds. All right, insights into 1 through 7.
There is a lot here.
Yes.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the reaction of the priest when David shows up,
Mm-hmm.
um, definitely lets you know that he knows something's off.
Mm-hmm.
For David traveling alone, it's like, but then I think David kind of makes it try to sound like he's not alone.
Mm-hmm.
The taking of the bread, I kind of looked all that up and went back to Leviticus. You have to be clean to eat, so that it kind of was. I mean, I kind of anyway, kind of cleared up my mind of what it was saying is that, before you gave him the bread, you have to be clean.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was it unholy for him to eat the bread if he wasn't a priest? I don't know. That was one question I wrote down.
Yes, from what I have surmised, it is. Like, yes, he there it was only for the priest. I have seen I mean I've seen both ways. But yeah, I think I mean I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think he was supposed to eat the bread. Um and I do have this article here. Was it wrong for David to eat the showbread in 1 Samuel 21, 1 through 6? And um I'll just read it because it's kind of an interesting discourse. In 1 Samuel 21, David is on the run from Saul, and David comes to the town of Nob, where the tabernacle was, and meets with Ahimelech the priest. David asks for food, but Ahimelech has nothing but the showbread, which was consecrated for use in the tabernacle. Despite the law that reserved the showbread exclusively for the sons of Aaron, so that was in Leviticus 24:9, the priest gave him the consecrated bread. Since there was no bread there except the bread of the presence that had been removed from before the Lord and replaced by the hot bread on the day it was taken away, the issue of David eating the showbread comes up in Jesus's response to the Pharisees when they accuse him of breaking the Sabbath. His disciples had been picking some kernels of grain and eating them as they walked through a field. And the Pharisees objected. Look, they said to Jesus, your disciples are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath. In response, Jesus cites 1 Samuel 21. Haven't you read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God, and he and his companions ate the consecrated bread, which was not lawful for them to do, but only for the priests. So you have Jesus saying it was not lawful for them to do, but only for the priest. And Jesus seems to use what David did regarding the showbread as justification for what his disciples were doing. If that is the case, then David must have been in the right. There are several views on why it was allowable um, for David to eat the showbread. Some have postulated that since this was the old bread for the priest to eat, not fresh bread currently in use, the priest could give it to someone else. However, there is nothing in the law regarding the showbread that indicates that the priests were allowed to give it away. They were supposed to eat it. Later in the narrative of 1 Samuel, Saul accuses the priest of inquiring of God for David. So we're going to get into that next week. This fact leads some to suggest that the priest asked for and received special permission from the Lord to give the bread to David. However, the text is not clear what the priest did actually inquire of the Lord for David, much less that the inquiry was about bread and that the Lord responded affirmatively. The view goes beyond anything even remotely suggested in the text. Third, some suggest that in the case of emergency, the ceremonial rules could be set aside for the greater good. David seems to appeal to the priest on this basis, and ultimately, this may have been why the priest gave him the bread. The priest did make sure that David and his men had kept themselves from women. A sexual relation would have made them ceremonially unclean for the day. Finally, it is possible that both David and the priest simply have an inadequate understanding of the law. They both seem to assume that if David's men are in a state of ritual purity, then eating the showbread would be proper. Of course, it is also possible this was simply a quick justification that would not have held up under scrutiny. If Jesus had never commented on this incident, there would be little question about David's actions. In fleeing for his life, he lied to a priest, tricked him perhaps, and ate bread that was not meant for him. While David was a man after God's own heart, he had many failures and shortcomings, and he is not an example to follow in every instance. The words of Jesus seem to make clear that David was violating the law by eating the showbread, and Jesus says it was unlawful. He went into the house of God, and he and his companions broke the law by eating the sacred loaves of bread. Taken at face value, these words show that David was a lawbreaker. On the other hand, it is possible that Jesus was using irony when he said David did what was not lawful. Jesus could have been using what today we call air quotes in the next verse. Jesus also says that the priests desecrate the Sabbath in the performance of their Sabbath day duties. It is obvious that when Jesus uses the word desecrate, he is speaking tongue in cheek. Could he be doing the same thing with the description of not lawful in verse 4? As Jesus pointed out, our priest work on the Sabbath, so clearly there are some exceptions to the Sabbath day rule. Could this also imply that there are some common sense exceptions to other laws, such as one regarding the special bread that David ate? In Matthew 12:7, Jesus quoted from the Old Testament, I desire mercy and not sacrifice. So this suggests that alleviating human suffering is more important than following the letter of the law. Yes, David broke the letter of the law, but those in need received mercy. In a parallel passage, Jesus states the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, the Sabbath was designed to serve and benefit man, not the other way around. Caring for human needs takes precedence over keeping the letter of the law. Jesus uses this principle of caring for others as a rationale for healing on the Sabbath. This line of reasoning corresponds with the third view above. In case of emergency or to extend mercy, the ceremonial rules can be bent. There's no need to stand on ceremony when someone is in distress. In the same context, Jesus also points out that he is Lord of the Sabbath. That is, he is the one who makes the rules. A definite claim to deity. He can, as Lord of the Sabbath, he can determine what is allowable on the Sabbath. Certainly, God could have granted David special permission to eat the showbread, just as Jesus could grant special permission for the disciples to pick and eat grain on the Sabbath. Jesus's main point seems to be that the Pharisees are being hypocritical nitpickers. When what David did was not lawful, yet they saw David as a great hero. What Jesus's disciples did was lawful, since they were not truly harvesting grain, but simply plucking some grains to munch on as they walked along. The Pharisees did not condemn David for actually breaking the law, but they were willing to condemn Jesus for doing something that was actually allowable. So if the Pharisees justified David in eating the showbread because of the greater good, then they should have no problem with what Jesus did. If the Pharisees justified David on the premise that God could have given him special permission, then they should have no problem with Jesus, the Lord of the Sabbath, who had the authority to make exceptions. If they had no problem with David, a flawed man, doing something unlawful, then they should have no problem with David's greater son doing something that they did not like, but which was legal. Ultimately, Jesus's commentary is not on what David did, but on the Pharisees' opinion of David versus their treatment of Jesus, the son of David. It seems clear that when David ate the showbread, he broke the law, as he did many other times in any ways, and God overlooked David's sin in view, here we go, of the final sacrifice that would be offered on the cross. And there are many places in the Old Testament where the biblical characters do things that are neither condemned nor commended. In such instances, we must be careful about using their actions as patterns to follow. So I put that one in there and read it aloud because just the line of reasoning and bringing in all of those kind of cross references and things. Yeah, I mean, David was not supposed to eat the bread. And and you kind of have to bring in that cross references where Jesus talked about it and what did he say about it and what was the context in which he was saying it as well. Um, so yeah, he was not supposed to eat the bread, but he did. So David broke the law. He
Well,
also lied to the
and the
priest.
priest were giving it to him.
Yep.
I mean, I think the priest just, I think he would probably just came in as a hot mess. I mean, I'm sure he was probably fearful, or the priest could sense whatever was going on, and or something was going on. And
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of envision the scene of, what's happening.
Yeah, and scripture doesn't really um say like, because I'm like, okay, why there's a lot of questions here. Why are you fearful? Why was the priest just fearful?
Well, I
Um,
think I think it was just the fact that, I mean, when you read the whole thing as a whole, I think the priest probably picked up on David's vibes, for lack of a better word, and the fact that he was traveling alone, and just, I think he's just like, something is off, which, maybe gave him a little hair on the back of his neck standing up feeling. He's like, something is not right here. And then, is it odd for David to be asking for the bread? I mean, that's probably weird too, right?
yeah. Yeah, so I mean in Farag's sermon notes, I mean he did point out that the priest probably knew about David, because Samuel, so, mm, so I mean they probably knew. I mean there's a lot of things going on. Was it just David's presence in general? I mean, like you said, he's like freaking out, he's like running, you know for sanctuary and protection and things like that. He runs to the priests, and he asks for the bread, and it's not lawful for him to have that bread, and the priest gives it to him. So they both break the law. Um,
And so from what I kind of read in my notes too, or in what, maybe it was in a comment, I think it was like only a distance of like 2 or 3 miles from where he was, correct? Or did I read that wrong? Because I mean, he was pretty much a hot mess at the end of the last chapter.
mhm.
It wasn't that far. I don't think he really had time to compose himself. He probably is still in panic mode.
Yeah, and I think that you can run to uh yeah, Sanab was not that far, but I think that you can run to the priest for sanctuary. So, yeah, I
It's
mean,
interesting to see too the change in David from, this is the guy who, grabbed a couple of stones and headed out to go deal with what's his name. And then here, no fear, total reliant on God. And then now all of a sudden he's gone kind of a whole different direction, is kind of what I was like. Kind of interesting to see him flip flop.
yes. Yes. So here we have, and I really liked how that article stated it, just because you see these people doing these things in scripture doesn't mean that we need to repeat it. It doesn't mean that it's, okay. So like you look at Abraham and you see his walk, and he's a righteous man, but he doesn't always make the right decision. Um, in Genesis, you see the walk of the righteous, and it's up and down and up and down and up and down. And we're seeing that with David. He goes to the battle lines. He's just a kid. He sees this big giant from Gath, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take him on." And goes and gets some stones. He's totally composed. He knows that the Lord's gonna deliver Israel that day, but he's not so sure the Lord's going to deliver him from Saul, even though he has been anointed the next king of Israel. Right now, he's just freaking out. And so we see here is a dip. Here's a dip. Um, So we see not only does he ask for the bread and breaks the law by asking for and taking the bread, we see the priest doing the same thing. Um, but obviously that decision is made out of mercy, because they're hungry. And whether or not, I mean, Jesus says, I think there was a question I saw just in commentary of whether or not David was alone or lied about people being with him. But Jesus puts a lid on that because he says, and the men who are with him. So there were a few, it looks like. Were there four because he asked for 5 loaves of bread? I don't know. Um, gosh. So we have all this going on. We don't really know why the priest was trembling. Was it just because of David not composed? I was kind of wondering if maybe he just kind of knew that, oh, this is Saul's after him. Like if he knew, kind of knew already. Um, because we have Doug down here, the chief of Saul's shepherds. He was there and he had to have known something because he goes and reports to Saul. So I don't know. There's kind of a lot of things that aren't written in here, um, that um, you kind of have to go with the main thing is the plain thing. They did break the law. We do see that David did lie. He said that he was on a mission from the king, and he was not on a mission from Saul. Um, so anything else in here? What did the bread represent at the table of showbread? So I have an article here about what was the bread of presence, but it represented Christ. Jesus is the bread of life. So there could be a picture in here. I mean, he's kind of losing it, but he ran to the right place. He ran to the priest. There is a picture in here, but then some things kind of went awry with the lying to the priest and breaking the law, even though the breaking of the law was out of mercy. Um, let's see. And then we have this Doug the Edomite guy, that we're gonna have to deal with, um, probably more in the coming chapters. But he was there. He was a servant of Saul, um, and he was an Edomite. So what does that mean? Was he Jewish?
My dog is being a little cray cray, so I may have to click off. I think the wind's blowing or something.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like he barks at everything.
yeah.
Go. He was not an Israelite, he was an Edomite, so no, he was not,
Uh-huh.
is what I saw in my notes.
Yeah, so he's a descendant of Esau. Uh,
Mhm.
so that's
Edom, which denied Israel the passage through their land, so there's been some beef with those guys for quite some time.
yes. So yeah, but he's in the service of Saul as his chief shepherd. So interesting. But So paragraph theme, David flees to Nob and lies to Ahimelech. Doug the Edomite, Saul's servant, was there. Um, and this whole thing is gonna come into play in the subsequent chapters. So David said to Ahimelech, now there is not a spear, or now is there not a spear or a sword on hand, for I brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's matter was urgent. Then the priest said, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, behold, it is wrapped in the cloth behind the ephod. If you would take it for yourself, take it, for there is no other except it here. And David said, there is none like it, give it to me. So insights into these two verses. Um, Paragraph theme, Ahimelech gives David Goliath's sword.
So only thing I have is that we're looking at, I guess, again, the turning, because I guess we get to it in the Psalms, but the turning away of, so he's looking for physical weapons instead of going to the Lord for his
Mhm.
weapons. It's kind of a, I need a sword when, no. So
Yeah.
that's, that's what I kind of got from, and then of course the parallel of it being Goliath's sword
Mm-hmm.
was interesting.
Yes, it's kind of the underlying spiritual theme here is, where do you run and what do you run to whenever it's on? Like you're you're in the trial of your life. And so we see like basically three different things that David does here. He runs to the priest, which, technically that's a good thing. But then we see that he lies, and then, oh, he's getting Goliath's sword and things like that. So we see kind of, um, yeah, we see a picture here of running to the carnal rather than the spiritual. But then we also see the practical going on here. It's like, well, you need food, probably need some weapons eventually. And I mean, that was just kind of the thing at the time, of having the weapons. And so we also see the practical, we see the priest feeding him and giving him weapons. Now, whether or not the priest knew what was going on, um, it doesn't say quite yet. We're gonna see in the subsequent chapters what happens, but um, yeah.
Totally,
So,
totally relatable. I mean, I think it's a relatable story as to, like you said, the practical of what,
mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, there's totally been those times in our life that it's like the heat is on and we're making decisions, and sometimes they seem like good decisions, and then later we find out, well, maybe not. So this is just kind of one of those times, and it's kind of this valley in David's faith walk. But
driven by fear, I think. Yeah.
huh?
I said driven by fear, I think, part of
Hmm.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's totally relatable. And the thing uh is whenever you look at these great men of faith, like David, a man after God's own heart, and you see, oh, he's not perfect. Um, and then what's the difference? What's the difference between him and Saul? Because Saul's definitely not perfect. But the difference is David's heart for God, rather than Saul's heart for God. Like Saul sinned and was just like, oh well, he didn't even admit to anything. He was just kind of like, well, I did do what you said, even though he really didn't. I mean, his heart is just not there. Whereas we see, especially through the Psalms, David's heart, whenever he sins, he's like, that was sin. He calls it sin and he repents, and he relies on the promises of the Lord. And we'll see that when we get to these next three Psalms, David's heart for the Lord. So then, and this was a short chapter. So then David arose and fled that day from Saul and went to Achish, king of Gath. But the servants of Achish said to him, is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing of this one as they danced, saying, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s? David took these words to heart and greatly feared Achish, king of Gath. So he disguised his sanity before them and acted insanely in their hands and scribbled on the doors of the gate and let his saliva run down into his beard. And then Achish said to his servants, behold, you see the man behaving as a madman. Why do you bring him to me? Do I lack madmen that you have brought this one to act the madman in my presence? Shall this one come into my house? All right, insights.
Why there? I mean, I just don't. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason, but it's like, bro, this is where you just like killed a lot of their people. I just don't know why you would go there.
Yeah. I did see one commentary that maybe it was because Saul wouldn't go there. Um, because we see that he was afraid of the Philistines. Like every time, he's like hanging out under the pomegranate tree. He's just standing there, like letting Goliath do his thing for 40 days, and not really taking action. So I was like, well, yeah. Um, yeah, David is not he's not thinking here. Because he gets there and it's like, so the I have Gath here. There's an article about the Philistine territories, kind of those city states that made up uh Philistia. Um, but yeah, I mean, he gets there and they know that song, and that about Saul and David, and so David was way more a problem for them than Saul. Um, very well known. Um, and this is kind of, if you look at this, if the Philistines are singing the song that the Israelites are singing, David's reputation is pretty strong. He's actually, through this song, being looked at as, I mean, definitely as stronger than Saul, and Saul's paranoia, and we saw that come up. So yeah, this plan of running to the Philistines didn't work, but we see what he does to get out of it, which is to act in insane. Um, so I don't know. Does anybody have any more insight?
I don't, um, David, back in the last chapter, I mean, he had said that there was just a step between him and death.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he was definitely probably a little panicked. I think maybe forgotten God a little bit. Forgotten, what God had done for him and would do. But like you said, he still had a heart for God. And I mean, what do you do? I mean, I think he's just really believes he's running for his life. It's like, what can he do? But he also knows that he's been anointed to be king, and um, I don't know what that carries with it as far as you're anointed, but you're not in the position yet.
Mhm.
So I don't know in their culture what that meant or if it gave him any special privilege or anything, but some people knew that he was next in line.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. It's definitely a tough situation. It's a picture of whenever we are called by God, that we will have uh trials and persecutions. It's not an easy road. I mean, Christ says so. And so we see David's calling, and then he's put into um, you know, trial, tribulation, persecution. And it's all, I mean, you can kind of look at it, sanctification process. That's the purpose of that. Um, yeah, he's just having this, he's running for his life. It's a moment between him and death, and he's kind of making some just he's all over the map here, as far as what's going on. But then we see some psalms that came out of this, and she led you to Psalm 34, 56, and 142 in days 1 and 2 of your homework. Now you are going to have a couple more psalms, some cross-referencing, and 2 chapters for part 2. So you might want to start early, but this is just kind of the setup for what's going to play out in a second. So yeah. Last paragraph theme: David fled from Saul to Achish, king of Gath, and the servant said, "Is this not David?" And just overall chapter theme: David flees from Saul. So Psalm 34 and Psalm 56, I put them in this order just because that's the order they appeared in the lesson. But you see here a psalm of David when he feigned madness before Abimelech, who drove him away, and he departed. And then we have over here when the Philistines seized him at Gath. So the Philistines would have seized him before he went before Abimelech. And so Abimelech is actually a title. It's not the name of the king. The name of the king was Achish. So Abimelech, you see different Abimelechs in Genesis, and so Abimelech is a title, just like Pharaoh. So they would say the Pharaoh of Egypt, but there was different ones, just like Darius in what you call it, Daniel. So sometimes you see these names and it's really a title meaning king. So this happened before this happened, and then we have a maskell of David when he was in a cave. Next one we're gonna have, our next part of the lesson will actually have one about Doeg. So again, these are in order, and we can put them in order for the next lesson to see how this timeline kind of played out. So with these psalms, something came up. This is kind of the first time I've done paragraph themes for psalms. So psalms are songs. A song, and that's a whole different literary structure. And I brought in an article about chiastic structure, and chiastic structure is like whenever you like bring up a theme and then bringing it up again in reverse. So you can come in my notes and read that a little bit. I'm not really sure that applies here. I did see um some repeats here. When I'm afraid, I will put my trust in you and God, whose words I praise. In God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid. What can mere man do to me? In God, whose word I praise, and the Lord, whose word I praise. In God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? Um, so there's some repeat there. So songwriting is just a whole different animal. It's a whole different literary structure, and um so I raised a songwriter, and I can tell you that the process, David probably did not just like it started in these situations, it started in his mind, and then actually these psalms came to fruition later. It's a process. The songwriting thing is a process. You get inspired by something, and what ends up on the paper for us to read is a process that he went through with the Lord. um it's kind of anything uh that the Lord puts in your heart and uses your talents to produce. There is this process from getting it from that walk, so to speak, onto paper. So this is what came out of these events. So Psalm 34, a psalm of David when he feigned madness before Abimelech, who drove him away, and he departed. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul will make its boast in the Lord. The humble will hear it and rejoice. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. So we see I to now we have some other peoples in here. And so we're going to need to look at when that happens. When are there some other little peoples in here? So I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. They looked to him and were radiant, and their faces will never be ashamed. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and rescues them. O taste and see that the Lord is good. How blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. O fear the Lord, you his saints, for to those who fear him there is no want. The young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they who seek the Lord shall not be in want of any good thing. Come, you children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Who is the man who desires life and loves length of days, that he may see good? Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are towards the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. The face of the Lord is against evildoers, to cut off the memory of them from the earth. The righteous cry, and the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all, and he keeps all his bones. Not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked, and those who hate the righteous will be condemned. The Lord redeems the soul of his servants, and none of those who take refuge in him will be condemned. All right, so insights into Psalm 34.
Definitely sounds like David is turning back. It is a gratitude. I mean, I feel like he's turning his life back to the Lord is maybe what this is saying. Um, because the Lord has delivered him out of, you know, danger, and it's like, bro, you need to follow me.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, he's seeing God's deliverance again, I think. And
Mm-hmm. Yep.
it's hard to tell how long he was in that other state, but he is getting back to God. I mean, he's gotten back. It's not, I mean, he's pretty solid when he's writing this, it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a process. It's a journey. It's he was in a state of not making great decisions. Somebody had pointed out in commentary that the thought to act like a madman might have come from God as deliverance, a way to be delivered from Achish. And where would he have gotten the thought of acting like a madman? From watching Saul, whenever the evil spirit would torture him. Um, but that was commentary, but definitely we see out of all of that, um, we see David, like, everything's right, and he talks about God's deliverance. And so we see this picture of whenever we are in those persecutions and trials, and we can, sometimes we make bad choices in the middle of them because we forget, we see God, um his loyalty to us, his keeping the covenant, his keeping the promises, him, you know still walking us through and still protecting us. And why and he has it down here: the Lord redeems the soul of his servants, and none of those who take refuge in him will be condemned. So Kay had asked you, like, he's kind of talking about, is he really talking about necessarily the enemy? And yes, but also he's speaking more to salvation. And because he has salvation, then he has all these other things in the Lord. And so the Lord is the Lord is for us. He's not against us. When we hit trials and persecutions and tribulations, he is on our side. Psalm 23, he sets a table before me. So the picture there is, whenever the enemy is encamped around you, you're at the king's table. And so in ancient Eastern culture, if you were invited to somebody's table, you were under their protection. They would give their life to protect you. And so that's the picture in Psalm 23, is he prepareth a table before me. You're under his protection. And so that's what David is just, this is the song that's in his heart after all of this. So anything else in 34? So when you're doing your homework, come back and look at this. So we're going to tie all this together, but look at how it goes from singular to plural. And in here, so there is a lesson in there. So 56, which actually comes before 34 as far as chronological order, for the choir director, according to Jonath Elam Rokiam, a miktham of David when the Philistines seized him in Gath. Be gracious to me, O God, for man has trampled upon me. Fighting all day long, he oppresses me. My foes have trampled upon me all day long, for they are many who fight proudly against me. When I am afraid, I will put my trust in you, in God, whose word I praise. In God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid. What can mere man do to me? All day long they distort my words. All their thoughts are against me for evil. They attack, they lurk, they watch my steps, as they have waited to take my life. Because of wickedness, cast them forth. In anger, put down the peoples, O God. You have taken account of my wanderings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Then my enemies will turn back in the day when I call. This I know, that God is for me. In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, whose word I praise, in God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? Your vows are binding upon me, O God. I will render thank offerings to you. For you have delivered my soul from death, indeed my feet from stumbling, so that I may walk before God in the light of the living. All right, insights into 56.
These are good examples of self-talk, you know? Like when you don't have somebody else around who's thinking the same way as you or whatever. I mean, he's just really, he's pumping himself up, you know, he's bringing himself back to believing what he believed before, you know? It's pretty interesting to watch what he's going through, you know, from the outside and seeing how he was able to get himself back.
Yes. And that's interesting because JD has, whenever he teaches some of the other Psalms, he says self-talk, like David's having the talk with himself. Right.
Humility. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Definitely, as it definitely humbling himself before the Lord, which is something I highlighted, the humility and the, you know, giving it back, just the circle and repenting and how faithful God is for taking, you know, taking us back and after lying and kind of the craziness that he did.
Yes. Yes, he's still yeah, it's that process of we're here. This is really just kind of not good. So we're here and getting to hear. And these songs, the beginnings of them started with these situations. Kind of when you're in a trial, when you're in a tribulation, you might not be making all the right decisions in it, but that song has started in your heart. God starts working in your heart and gets you back to here. Where David is putting the pen to paper, so to speak, and he has this song in his heart. And like he said, this is his self-talk through his songs, through his psalms, and getting back to this. And so here he is. He goes to the priest, he goes to Gath, the next chapter we're going to see he's in the cave, and we're going to see some other things, some people's with them, so pay attention to this. And yeah, this is what has come out. So these are good songs to put in your back pocket, and to bring out whenever it's going down and going on. It's kind of shocking whenever you get into the Psalms how much there is about just different situations we find ourselves in with people. So but we see this theme here with redemption. I forgot to mention this one. So here's David also, he keeps all his bones, not one of them is broken. That's a reference to Messiah, to Christ, because none of his bones were broken. So in all of this, whenever he's has the song formulating in his heart, there's also a prophecy of Messiah coming up right before he talks about the Lord redeems the soul of his servants, and none of those who take refuge in him will be condemned. So
Another thing,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
another thing that I thought was interesting is I had seen somewhere, I don't even know where, but it was something, a discussion about angels in the Bible. And I think this is one of the verses where the Psalm where he talks about angels, an angel will surround you or an angel will be with you. Because there's a lot of dispute about that. And so it was interesting that this one came up. And I don't even, like I say, I don't remember, my old age is showing, but I don't remember where I was reading about people kind of saying that, angels would not. But then in this psalm, he talks about it. So I
So
don't
the
know.
angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and rescues them.
Fear being used as worship praise. I think there's, fear is not. Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of times whenever you see the angel of the Lord, most of the time it means Christ or a pre-incarnate, a theophany, appearance of Christ. So here's the deal. We know, especially from studying Daniel, that there is a spiritual battle, or battles in the heavenlies between, demons and what we call demons and angels. There is a battle at all times. It's a battle we can't see. We don't really need to pay attention to it that much. But we know that there is a spiritual battle. Where we get into error is whenever we start relying on our quote unquote guardian angels, where we start praying to angels and things like that. You see where in Revelation where John bows down to the angel and he's like, no, don't do that. The angels, because they follow the Lord, they don't want credit. All credit and glory goes to God. So if God sends an angel to intercede in something, it's still God who delivers. So yeah, people get a little wrapped up about the angels, but usually the angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear them and rescues them. Usually angel of the Lord is a theophany, pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. So the main thing here is the Lord. So yeah, we know it's there. We know there's angels and demons. We know that they are in their little battles or whatever. But but it's not something for us to really, people kind of take it too far. But yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what the article, it was kind of disputing
Mm-hmm.
all the things. But that's a good explanation.
Yeah. So, let's see. Psalm 142. So this is a maskell of David when he was in the cave. So I don't, yeah, this lesson I probably should have just done as one. But we might not have time to cover it all. So, we'll put these Psalms in order next time. But we have a maskell of David when he was in the cave. And so this chapter doesn't tell us, but he'll be in a cave next week whenever we're in 6b. So a prayer, I cry aloud with my voice to the Lord and make supplication with my voice to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before him and I declare my trouble before him. When my spirit was overwhelmed within me, you knew my path, and the way where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see, for there is no one who regards me. There is no escape for me. No one cares for my soul. I cried out to you, O Lord, and I said, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Give heed to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring my soul out of prison so that I may give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me, for you will deal bountifully with me. All right, insights into 142.
I don't have an insight, but I have a question. When
Mm-hmm.
he says that where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me, is he
Mm-hmm.
referencing temptation? Or literally a trap that I don't know about? Like a trap door. I mean,
Yeah. Well, we do see where, I mean, yeah. Um, it says they have hidden a trap for me. So it looks like he is talking about a person. A person has hidden a trap for him. So yeah. Um, This one I titled There Is No One Who Regards Me. So we look here. So Psalm 34, there's some little peoples in here because it goes from I to plural, and we see him leading some people. So we need to look for that in part 6b when we get to these subsequent chapters. And then 56, what can man do to me? Was a theme. So my soul boasts in the Lord for 34, because we look and there's a lot of um we see redemption. So there's a lot of salvation talk in here with redeemed, condemned. We see that messianic prophecy. So my soul boasts in the Lord. When I am afraid, in God I put my trust. So what can man do to me? You have delivered my soul from death. So he's the one, God is the one that puts to death and brings alive. So we see this alignment here. And then 142, he's in the cave and he's crying aloud to the Lord for deliverance. He's like, there is no one who regards me. And this is we see David at this low moment back here in 20. He is he's running from Saul, the king of Israel. He has Saul and his whole army after him. He has to leave everything that he knows, his wife, his life, and now he's on the run being hunted. and his friend, his best friend. Um, and then so here we have 21 where it's like, okay, yeah, he's just kind of, you know, not totally aligned like we saw with Goliath. Um, and so we see this low point, and the Psalm 142, there is no one who regards me. Like, all I have is you, Lord. All I have is you. Um, so any more insights into 142 or any of the Psalms?
You can definitely hear the despair in 142.
Mm-hmm.
So it says in prison. Was he actually in prison, or is that a um because I guess we haven't gotten to that chapter yet where he's in the cave, but I didn't know if he was just hanging out with some friends or if he was actually in prison there or hiding. I mean, you can imagine Saul being as crazy as he is, and totally, not gonna sleep until David is dead. I mean, you can only imagine the despair that this kid is feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Probably not, I mean, try, who do you, I mean, it's putting his trust back in the Lord. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
be it by divine intervention or whatever happened here, or his heart turning back towards the Lord. It's, yeah, because you can't trust people, that's for sure, because you're gonna see that, the guy turn him in.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, my brain's not working right now.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's a definite progression from bad to worse. This can happen. Um, and there's going to be a lot more put on David. I mean, right now it's just pretty much leaving everyone behind. Everything he knows. I mean, he has no money on him. He had no weapons. He had nothing. He just is just running. And yeah. And so here we are. I mean, he just left everything behind, his friend, his wife, everything he knows, the life he knew. And now he's just running for his life. So, I mean, we really have to kind of sit and imagine that. Um, yeah. So Psalm 142, definitely he's in despair. No one regards him. And he's asking for deliverance. She did I think have you mark like the different like cry to the Lord and stuff like that. So you can start with these Psalms, kind of doing a topical study on prayer as well. So who is a man after God's own heart? It's not a perfect man, but it's a man who seeks God. You know, First John, it says, it says if we confess our sin, then he is faithful. So it's not that we don't sin, because unfortunately we do, and that's one of the reasons why we look forward to the rapture, is so we can just get out of all this mess, and stop sinning. But it's the confession of it, like, okay, that was wrong, and we realign ourselves and remember God's promises and things like that. And like Gloria said, here we have David with some self-talk, and we see the things going on in his heart here. um so we're gonna see a progression as we move on where I call it going from bad to worse, because right now, David really just has himself and and a few other guys. And then it's gonna get to where, okay, he's gonna have a lot more responsibility on him in this while he's fleeing Saul. So next week your homework's going to be a little more intense. You're going to have 2 chapters. You're going to have more cross-referencing and a couple of psalms.